you're a fairly new superintendent here now. How long have you been on the job? And let's just talk a little bit, tell people a little bit about you and where you came from, how you ended up here.
So I started officially on March the 1st, just a few months ago, a little over 4 months ago now. After Dr. Joanne Avery retired, she'd been here a long time in the district, 6 years I think as the superintendent. So I got hired at the end of September. I was here in November, parts of November, December, January, and February before taking over. I'm a South Carolina guy, born and raised in South Carolina. Grew up right down the road in Piedmont, and went to school there. I'm a Furman grad. I don't look like one. I don't sound like one probably, but I'm a Furman University graduate. I've taught and coached around the country, around the state, excuse me. And this was next step. I was a high school principal for 18 plus years, at some big schools in Fort Mill, and this was the right time to move and see if my leadership can translate into a little bit bigger role.
And what got you into education initially? I mean, when you were growing up, did you always think I'm going to be a teacher, an educator, a coach, or something?
I probably knew, when I was 13, 14 years old. My father was an educator, was a teacher and a coach and a principal and a superintendent before he retired. And he still is the best leader, greatest leader I've ever known. And that's really nice when you have that in your family. And so my dad was kind of the impetus for that, for me. But I have a family full of educators. And so I knew early on, just didn't know what I was going to teach and what I wanted to coach, and then when I wanted to jump into being an administrator, whether or not I was capable of doing those things similar to what my father did. So I knew early, and loved teaching, loved coaching. Still consider myself a teacher and a coach, even though it's been over 20 years since I've been in the classroom every day or on the football field every day. Doing those things. So those were such important building blocks for me to where I am now. I feel like I understand what our teachers especially go through, what our principals go through on a daily basis, and appreciate what they do so much. We have found out, I think, during a pandemic, how valuable certain portions of our society are, and teachers, administrators, folks that work in school are some of the heroes that I think have come out of this thing. And so that's what I was about. My sister was a teacher, and I retired as a principal. My brother did not do that. He's a civil engineer, but the family is a bunch of teachers. My oldest daughter is a teacher. My wife is a teacher. And so we've got a family full of educators.
Some of the people watching this may know your dad. Tell them who your dad was.
My dad is Dee Christopher from Anderson 1. He was my high school principal in the 70s and 80s at Wren High School, and was the superintendent there from 88 to 04. So yeah, and he lives right down the road. I haven't been back in Anderson County since I graduated college, and I've been around the state. And so it's really nice to be home, be close to mom and dad, where I can see them. My sister still lives in the community, or in Anderson County as well. Matter of fact, she lives in District 4, and has for 30 years. So we're excited to be back in God's country.
You talked about coaching. How important are athletics to academics? A lot of people talk about athletics and academics as if they're two very separate things. How important are those two things in a school situation?
Well, I'll talk about all of our extracurriculars, whether that's clubs or band or chorus or archery here in Anderson 4 is really important, and athletics. All of those things are a hook. They're a hook for kids to be engaged in school. If we can get them excited about that, maybe we have a really good opportunity to progress them, to see beyond today what's available for them. So I think that hook and that engagement, and I'll tell you what, the folks who work with our student athletes, our choral students that do musicals and performances, and our band, and our archery kids, and our clubs, our student council and beta clubs and things of that nature. The folks that are doing that and are establishing those relationships with those students, they're getting buy-in from students, not just in that activity, but also in school in general. As a parent, I've got 3 high school graduates myself. My goal was always to have my kids tired at the end of the day. I didn't want them up all hours of the night. I want them tired. So they were involved in athletics. They were involved in fine arts all throughout their schooling. So and they're all pretty good kids. Those activities just really give us an opportunity to develop additional relationships, positive relationships, and those kids gravitate towards good, positive role models. And I think that's so important in schools. Mom and dad are the most important, but next comes teachers and coaches and those folks that spend so much time with our kids.
You're taking the helm at probably what most people would consider one of the most challenging times in the history of public education. What challenges are y'all facing coming into this year, and what are some of y'all's plans to deal with those?
There's a lot of biggest things that we're going to be dealing with. What's going on with the pandemic currently and how that will progress over the next 4 weeks is going to be really important and impactful for us. The amount of learning loss, and I don't like that word, I prefer the term unfinished learning, just because we didn't have as much time on task last year as we would have preferred. It wasn't a normal school year for us. Our school day in Anderson 4 was decreased by about an hour, depending on level. And so we've got a lot of catching up to do, if you will. That's not to say that we didn't do a superior job, because I believe the plan that Dr. Avery and our district prepared last year was really, really good. It protected, it had as the priority the safety and health of our students and our employees. We did a really good job of executing that plan. But there's just going to be holes and some potholes, if you will, in the learning that occurred last year. And so we've got to spend some time doing that. Not to mention, we've got about 400 students in Anderson School District 4 that are coming back to school for the first time since March of 2019. So we've got, 2020, since 2020. And so we've got some students who hadn't been in school physically. They've been virtual for that time period. And so getting them back assimilated into school is going to be something that's different. I don't know that it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be something that we just haven't dealt with in every grade level before. So those things are really driving us right now as we prepare for the new school year. We had to have a return to school plan in June to the state, which we did. Although we were in school face-to-face really all year, K through 8. And then November for high school, we were in school every day except for our virtual academy students. So they, we have a really good plan going forward for being back in school. It's just, at this point, just waiting on that variant and how that's going to potentially affect us. The vaccines out there, about 75% of our employees, maybe more at this point, but in late April, I had about 75% that we felt were vaccinated at that point. That gives us a leg up a little bit and gives some assurance to our employees, at least. We're hoping that a lot of our 12 to 18-year-olds were vaccinated as well. That will help out. It'll help out with continuity of services that we provide. So really those are the big things over the next 4 weeks to 2 months, getting into the school year.
Before we get into that, what about the kids? And I've talked to several superintendents about this, who are already in the margins going into this. Do we know how many of those we may have trouble bringing back in, or do we know yet how many of those, what those numbers look like?
We had really good communication with our VLA, our virtual students, and our students that were face-to-face all year. We ended up, between the end of 2019-20 and beginning of 2021, we ended up losing about 114 students overall. We communicated with those families in February and March about their plans for this coming school year, and we think about half of those are going to show back up. Those are the ones that we were able to communicate with. So we think a good many of those are coming back to school, and they may have done a lot of different things. They may have homeschooled, they may have gone to a private school, they may have gone to a charter school, they may have done an online school in the state or outside of the state. So we think a good many of those are coming back. We just won't have a firm handle on that until really we start school.
I know you've had a chance now to meet with the board, and what kind of strategic plan do y'all have for the year ahead? What things are you excited about and things you're really looking forward to seeing? And
the thing that is on the horizon for Anderson 4 has to do with growth, which is exciting, but also brings some trepidation with it because there's some unknowns in that. This school district has remained the same size for at least the last 15 to 20 years. As I look back at enrollment figures going back to 05, 06, around there, we've been between 2,700 and 2,850, 2,870, somewhere around in there. Right now we're around 2,750 or so in our school district, and the number of houses that are going up in the town of Pendleton, but also that will be going up in Anderson County in our school district are concerning, because we're just unsure of what that is going to mean for our district. So I'm really excited going forward. We're preparing ourselves for that growth. We have this fall a facility and enrollment study that the school board has allowed me to commission to really determine what our needs are going forward for the next 5 to 10 years, and trying to position ourselves to communicate that with our public, which we think is really, really important. We don't know if there's a new school in our future, or if there's additions to schools or what, because we don't really know what the impact of the growth is going to be to our school district. We know it's going to be an impact to our roads, but what's it going to do to our school district? So we do anticipate student growth over the next 2 to 5 years, and we will have a plan to deal with that very soon. I come from Fort Mill, that was growing at times during my 14 plus years there at over 10% growth in the school district. I don't know that we'll get there anytime soon, but a couple of percent here and there, 2 or 3% a year for an extended period of time, is going to put some stress on our facilities, and so we've got to be prepared for that.
And one of the things that has gone along with that is it's been more difficult to generate revenue without having a lot of new students in, and that's one of the challenges. This district, the referendum was defeated, and a lot of needs have been kicked down the road a long time, and you're
Right.
inheriting all those.
Right.
So what are the budget challenges coming forward here?
Well, the biggest challenge is, Anderson 4 doesn't get a full portion of state EIA money, which is the per pupil expenditure. We get about 65% of the full allotment, and that number is 2512. Don't quote me on this one. 2512, 2516. So we get 65% of that. So that's a challenge for us. At the same time, we haven't been raising taxes over the last 4 to 5 years as well on our operational side, which is business. We don't pay operational taxes, from property taxes for my home in the district. So that hurts us to a certain extent, because then we go to the business community. We ask them to bear the brunt of that. So my hope is that one day maybe the legislature will get back into having a little bit better system for financing schools altogether. But I'll say this: the district has positioned itself well. Dr. Avery and our school board have done a really good job of positioning us for the future. It helps us right now that we have an infusion of federal money through the ESSER money that's coming in. That's going to be a big help for us. We're going to be able to do some things, especially surrounding unfinished learning and learning loss, that we weren't able to do before, that we're really excited about, that hopefully will prepare students for their next step. And that's what, that's our big goal, right, is to prepare kids for that next step. That means when they're going from kindergarten to first grade, that they're fully prepared to go to first grade, or whether they're graduating from high school, or they prepared for college and career, or the military, whatever the case may be for that individual student. We want every single one of them prepared for that next step. So that's what I would say about that. And I really do believe that the district is well positioned for the future. I believe there was a positive momentum heading into the pandemic, and I believe that momentum will continue itself over the next few years. There's a lot of pride in this community about the schools. People love the family atmosphere. They love the size of our school district. There are a ton of opportunities for students here in our school district as well. We provide a really good value, and the people are outstanding. Our community people are supportive of what we do. They value what we do. And then our teachers, our teaching assistants, our administrators, principals, our bus drivers, our custodians, our food service folks, all of those folks are really good people who care deeply about their work.
Moving into the new year, you're back to what people consider traditional school, at least with some caveats there,
right.
Obviously. What are some of the goals and some of the things you're excited about this year, some progress I hope to see?
So that progress academically is really what we're interested in. We're going to be relentless about growing kids as much as we possibly can. We did a lot of testing last year to see where our students were and seeing what growth they had. We had plenty of growth last year, not as much as we would prefer to see because of that limited time. But we believe that that's the biggest portion that we need to make sure that we spend our time on, and that's where our time and energy is going to be spent. We're going to have before and after school tutoring, extra help sessions. We're going to really ramp up our one-on-one interventions that we're doing with students, and our small group interventions in all three levels: elementary, middle, and high school. So we're really excited about that, because we know that we've got some students who didn't learn as much, or learn at the same rate even, because we know that the pandemic, there was a lot of anxiety on our students. There was a lot of anxiety on our families. There were food insecurities, there were job insecurities, all of those things that go into what we've dealt with, what we deal with normally, but then heightened during that time. The other portion of that is we've got to spend time on our social emotional health of our students and our employees. And so we have our focus initially at the beginning of the year with our employees is going to be on social emotional learning for our students and for our employees, and making sure that people's mental health is where it needs to be so that they can learn. We want our students coming to school. They're not coming to school perfect every day of the school year. I'm not coming here perfect every day of the school year. So learning how to cope with some of those emotions, and then also having people that are available to assist in those difficult times that we all go through as adults, but our kids go through them too. And so that's a main focus. We're hiring a social emotional learning coordinator, somebody that will work individually with schools, will do some individual student work as well with behavior and just all kinds of social emotional learning. We think that's important as well. Healthy kids are easier to teach than those that are unhealthy, whether that's emotionally unhealthy or whether they're just hungry. And so we're doing everything that we can to be almost a one-stop shop to try to help as much as we can so that we can get to the learning for our students.
Are these goals, are these shaped by your experience in the classroom? Because sometimes in education, you get lost in the woods and the briars of budgets and meetings and administration and stuff, but the things you're talking about are more hands-on. What about the kids? Is that coming from a former classroom teacher here?
Well, it probably is. And I said earlier, I haven't stopped being a teacher. But we're going to be, from the school board to the superintendent down the line, we're going to be about kids. And we're going to be about kids, and we're not going to apologize for that, and we're going to be relentless about that. So when we talk about budget, we're talking about how is this impacting our children. When we talk about growth and preparing for growth, how is this going to impact our children? Because I believe we've been given the responsibility to prepare every single student for their next step. And so that is a little bit in the weeds for the superintendent, I suppose. But teaching and learning's got to be what we're about first. And we have some really, really good teachers in our school district. We have some great principals, and I've got great support here at our district office. So that's what we're going to be about, and we're not going to apologize a whole lot about that.
Any things that parents and students will notice physically different coming back into this year?
Well, right now we're gonna put out our protocols for the school year in the next few weeks. We'll put out a draft, and then. But I think that we will. One of the things they'll see is we don't have any plexiglass up in our classrooms anymore. We're still going to try to socially distance. CDC still says 3 feet, so we're going to try to do that in our classrooms. We won't be taking temperatures at the door. Anecdotally, we found out that didn't really work for us. It didn't catch a lot of people that were potentially sick or had a fever at the time. So that's one thing. Masks were allowed to be opted out of in May by the governor. So that'll be different. We'll have a little bit fuller buses probably than normal, and masks won't be mandated on buses as well. So it'll feel more normal, but at the same time, we're still probably going to cluster our students into small groups and just have contact in those grade levels at elementary school, for instance. But that it'll feel more normal. We just won't fully be back to what we would call February of 2020 for some time, I don't think.
How about the facilities? Are there any refurbishment upgrades, anything people will notice?
We are, one of the things that occurred in the spring, summer of 2020 was Dr. Avery began purchasing replacement desk, one that was a little bit smaller footprint. And so we're going to finish that out in elementary and middle schools, hopefully by the end of August. So that's one thing that we did. The other thing, we were able to refresh our Chromebooks. We are completely one-to-one as a district. And I'll tell you one thing that we're really excited about, and I'm hopeful that it's going to be going on before the school year starts for the first day of school, is safety and security is vital in this day and age. The district has struggled over the years with communication in certain portions of the district. Our transportation supervisor told me that 30 minutes for every elementary route in the morning, every middle and high route in the morning, and in the afternoon. So 2 hours a day, he had a struggle with communication because we were using cell phones on those buses, and there were times when they were in and out. And the bus drivers knew where those places were. But we're able, in conjunction with Anderson County, a partnership with District 5, been able to put a new antenna over on Mance Jolly. And so we're going to be able to have radios in our buses that communicate throughout the district. I can communicate with buses from sitting right here at my desk if I need to. So that, in terms of safety and security, we're really excited to be able to do that. And that's something people don't think much about. But for us to be able to have that and communicate to our drivers during the morning or afternoon, that's going to be vitally important.
You know, campus safety in general is always, and people sort of forgot about it last year, but
Right.
particularly with what happened here a few years ago in this district,
Right.
you know, are there any changes to that, or just maintain?
Well, we have moved our transportation director, John Schmeller, who's done such a great job there, is also going to be our director of safety and security. And so nothing different right now than what our normal protocols have been in terms of safety and security. You know, we are looking at some things in our front offices, for instance, but we've got access. You saw when you got here today, you rang a buzzer to get into the building. So those things are still important, but we need to make sure that we're checking up on the little things, like making sure doors aren't propped open and fence gates aren't unlocked, things of that nature. So Mr. Schmeller's got a lot of work to do in making sure that we're doing exactly the things that we're saying we're doing.
What kind of things will you do to both communicate with and encourage parents to be involved in what's going on in the district? Well,
one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to continue to use our website, obviously. My goal is to do some type of outreach to families once a month, as well as doing as much posting on our social media as we possibly can, on our Facebook, Instagram, and our Twitter account. You know, I tell folks all the time, as a former principal, you know, if you've got a issue, if you've got something you want to air to us, how about do it to us first? You know, let the superintendent know, give him an opportunity to respond to you before you put it out there and put out something negative or put out some hearsay. 864-403-2000. And my email address is deechristopher@anderson4.org. And I've heard from parents already and look forward to meeting more as we kind of come out of this and get into more normal. I'll be more often at schools. I'll be at events for our students, whether it's athletics or band events or performances from schools, or I got to get to an archery contest soon. Yeah, I want to be out in the community and know people. I love the town square here in Pendleton. I think I've eaten at all the restaurants at this point, and my family enjoys it as well.